In Java, everything starts with data. Every line of code we write exists to process, store, move, or transform data. That's why understanding variables is the foundation of understanding Java. In this video, we will explore how variables work in Java, including scope, lifetime, declaration rules, and best practices. A variable scope defines where is the variable. Java has 5 levels of scope: class level, static, instance, method, and block. Class level loaded when the class is loaded, shared across all instances. Instance level, each object gets its own copy in memory. Parameter level, only accessible inside the method it's defining. Local level, visible within the method block. Block level, only visible inside the specific block, such as an if statement. Okay, let's check some scope examples. Inside the for, we define an integer e. We can access e variable here, okay, no problem. But when we try to access outside of the for, we have a compile error because e is out of scope. Let's check another example. We define an if and else cases here. And inside the if body, we define an integer y. And we can access here string output print line. We can take the value of y. We haven't any problem here. But inside the else, when we try to access to y, it's impossible. It's compile error because we define y inside the if block, okay? We cannot access here. Let's check another example together. For example, we have two methods. Method A. We have a parameter integer x here, okay? We can access x variable also inside the method A. It's okay, it's no problem. But when we try to access inside the method B, here we have another compile error because x is parameter of method A. So we cannot access another method to x parameter, okay? This is a compile error. Variables declared inside a block are not accessible outside of it. That is the rule. Now that we know where a variable lies and how we can access it. And do you know this question answer? What happens when two variables have the same name? Which parameter we can access? Let's check another example together. Fields and local examples. When you start learning Java, it's easy to think that fields and local variables are basically the same. This is a field variable and this is a local variable. Both of those types are integer. And a name, yeah, my field variable and my local variable. Assign a value and use them. So, what is the big deal? Big deal is that there are some differences between field variable and local variable. For example, field variables get default value if you don't initialize them. Local variables don't. When we try to print line a field variable, and put here, make it static, perfect. And my field variable, okay, so let's try to print line this. You can see here my field variable is 0 because primitive integer variables default value is 0. What's happened if we try to print line a local variable? Let's print it, and if we try to print line a local variable, let's see the result together. My local variable is 25. Okay, we don't have any problem here. But what's happened if we not define a local variable? It causes a compile error. Because field variable gets default value if you don't initialize them, local variables don't. We always need to initialize local variables. Numeric types default to 0. Boolean false. Reference like string is null. But the local variables, if you don't initialize them, you will get a compile error. So Java is clear. It's a local variable. It's your job to assign a value before use. Let's continue. What happens if local and fields variable share the same name? Okay. Local variables are inside methods. If they have the same name as a field, they shadow that field. Let's run our example and see the result together. And let's call the method here to see the result inside the main method, and run and see the result together. X is equal 1. If local variables have the same name with field variable, they shadow that field. In such cases, we use this keyword to access the field. If we use this keyword here, text here, this.x, and run and see the result together, this x is 0. Don't forget this rule. Local variables, shadow instance field, we use this keyword to access the field variables. Another difference between local variables and fields is in how you use final. Okay, let's check final example together. Marking a field as final means it must be initialized when the object is constructed, and then it can be never changed again. Let's change this name to local to be clear. Okay, it's better. Here we define a myFinal local variable, okay? Final just means you can assign it a value once, but the assignment doesn't have to happen when the variable is declared, okay? For example, we create a final variable local here and we define our final variable later. It's okay, it can be. But we have a field final variable, okay? It's named myFinal field and it's specified as final also. And we declare here 42. What's happened if we don't assign any value? It's a compile error because myFinal field is a field variable. We have to initialize it. We can initialize it inside the constructor also. No problem. But we need to initialize it. And perfect. And what's happened if we assign another value to our final local? It's a compile error because we have to initialize any final variable just once, okay? We cannot change its value. We cannot assign any value to our field value also. Compile error. We need to know that fields variables and local variables, they seem very similar, but they are not same. They have some differences, and this is the final field and local field differences. So, do you know which Java 10 introduced var variables? Let's check var variables together and what are the var variables, okay? Declare local variables without writing the type. The compiler infers the type based on the variable. And as you know, this is the traditional way to declare a local variable. In each case, the type is mentioned twice. Once on the left-hand side, the once on the right-hand side. This is where the var keyword comes into play. With the var definition, code becomes clear, but the type safe is still maintained. And let's check some compiler error together. Very important for the var variable definitions. Var can only be used for local variables. Here the local variables and here the field variables, okay? Var can only be defined for local variables, not for class members or method parameters. This is really important. When we try to define any parameters as a var here, we will have a compile error, cannot resolve symbol var. If we try to define a parameter variable as var, and we will have a compile error, it's not allowed. Comment this lines again. Another important, we cannot define any local variable without any declaration. We will have a compile error here. We cannot define any var local variable with null initializer also. And we will have another compile error here. And in loops, var makes things much more consistent and readable. Here is important also, when we define a var variable with an initializer, then we can change its value to null when this is not allowed. This is allowed also. And okay, in this video we covered variable scopes, the difference between local and instance fields, how the final keyword behaves, how to use var for the type instance. In the next video, we'll dive into inheritance in Java. If you have any question, please do not hesitate to text comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Thank you for watching, friends. See you in the next one.